Hi, I'm James Kennedy of Flourish Family Therapy.
And I'm Jennifer Kennedy of Flourish Family Therapy.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the case of Dennis Rader, better known as the BTK Killer or the BTK Strangler. Now, this case is pretty complex, so we're going to be dividing the topic into two separate videos. In the first video, I'll be looking at the background of the BTK case, and in the second video, Jenn will actually provide her analysis of Dennis Rader himself.
Don't forget to let us know what you think about Dennis Rader in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to not miss future videos.
And here we go. Dennis Rader was born in Pittsburgh, Kansas in 1945. Soon after his birth, his working-class parents moved to Wichita, Kansas. Rader was the oldest of four brothers. It is perhaps significant that he is the only brother who ever exhibited sadistically destructive behavior. Rader later admitted that from the time he was a small boy, he had harbored secret fantasies involving helpless women. He was fascinated with detective magazines featuring pictures of women in bondage. These images inspired Rader to create his own drawings of torture and murder. He also engaged in animal cruelty. After high school, Rader briefly attended college before joining the Air Force in 1966. Upon his discharge, he moved to Park City, where he met Paula Dietz. The two were married in 1971 and soon had two children, Carrie and Brian. Rader's first murders occurred in 1974 when he forced his way into the Wichita home of the Otero family. Rader was expecting to find only Julie and her 11-year-old daughter Josephine inside the house. Instead, he discovered that, in addition to Julie and Josephine, Joseph Sr. and 9-year-old Joe Jr. were also home. At gunpoint, Rader led the family into a bedroom and eventually strangled Joseph, Julie, and Joe Jr. He took Josephine's body to the basement and hung her from a pipe in the ceiling. Rader later said he had some quote unquote sexual fantasies in the basement, and investigators found his semen on the floor. It was after the Otero murders that Rader first attempted to communicate with the public. He sent a letter to the Wichita Eagle detailing how he had killed the Oteros and writing that he could not control the quote unquote monster within him. Rader also suggested a name for himself, BTK, standing for bind, torture, and kill. Just a few months after the Otero murders, Rader broke into the home of 21-year-old Kathy Bright, where he forced her younger brother Kevin to tie her up. Despite being strangled and shot in the forehead, Kevin managed to survive the attack, but Rader used a knife from his so-called kill kit to stab Kathy to death. Rader later told authorities that much of his time between murders was spent trolling for potential victims. He meticulously planned each of his murders, sometimes spending months or even years choosing the right victim, the best method of approach and attack, and his means of escape. Rader also tried to satisfy his bondage-related fantasies by dressing in women's clothing, wearing masks and wigs, and tying himself to beds, chairs, and trees. He was able to photograph these clandestine activities and kept the pictures, along with other bondage-related mementos and souvenirs from his victims, inside boxes and scrapbooks. He secreted the items in various places around the Rader home and his office. The family treehouse in the backyard made for an ideal location in which Rader could review his collections in private. In an interesting side note to Rader's self-bondage habits, FBI profiler John Douglas long suspected that Rader's wife Paula had once caught him in the act. It is unknown if this actually occurred. In 1977, 3 years after his murder of Kathy Bright, Rader struck again. He strangled 25-year-old Shirley Vian to death in her bedroom while her three young children banged on the door. 9 months later, Rader used his own belt to strangle 26-year-old Nancy Fox. Dennis Rader himself reported her murder to the police.
Yes, you will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing, Nancy Fox. I'm sorry, sir, I can't understand you. What is the address? 843 South Pershing. That is correct.
Throughout his career as a serial killer, Rader enjoyed taunting both investigators and the public. In 1978, he sent a letter to a local television station claiming that a mysterious force, Factor X, caused him to kill. He also expressed frustration that his crimes were not receiving adequate media coverage. Despite his need for attention, Dennis Rader never appeared on police radar as a possible suspect in the BTK murders. Rader waited until 1985 before he killed again. He murdered 53-year-old Maureen Hedge inside her Wichita home and then brought her corpse to Christ Lutheran Church, where Rader and his family were active members. He photographed Hedge in various poses throughout the church and then dumped her body in a ditch. Hedge was a risky departure for Rader. She lived just down the street from Rader's own home, and his family knew her. In 1986, Rader strangled Vicki Wegerle to death after gaining entrance to her home by posing as a telephone repairman. 5 years later, he killed for the final time when he slipped away from a camping trip with the Boy Scouts, where his own son was present, and murdered 62-year-old Dolores Davis. Rader's role with the Boy Scouts was just one way in which he maintained his public image as a caring husband and father and a devout Christian. His daughter Carrie later described a close relationship with her father. She said they enjoyed camping and fishing trips together. Rader also maintained more or less steady employment, working as an assembler of recreation equipment, an installer of home security systems, and as a compliance officer. He said he particularly enjoyed his job as a compliance officer, which afforded him the authority to strictly enforce rules and regulations. In the years after the Davis murder, the BTK case went cold. Dennis Rader had settled into a quiet life at home with his wife, and by 2004, he was 59 years old, president of the congregation at Christ Lutheran Church, and nearing retirement. It had been almost 25 years since BTK had killed or communicated with the police or the public. That all changed in March of 2004 when the Wichita Eagle received an envelope from someone calling himself Bill Thomas Kilman. The envelope contained photographs of Vicki Wegerle's body and a copy of her driver's license. Rader decided to resurface after reading an article in the Eagle concerning an upcoming book about the BTK murders. Not wanting to share the notoriety he felt he alone deserved, Rader sent chapters of his own book about BTK to KAKE Television. He also started mailing packages to Wichita police in December 2004. Early in 2005, Rader dropped a cereal box into the bed of a truck parked in the Home Depot parking lot. Police were able to retrieve the box and reviewed the footage from the store's surveillance cameras. They determined that a person driving a dark-colored Jeep Cherokee had left the cereal box, but they could not make out the vehicle's license plate or make any determinations about the figure behind the wheel. In one of his new letters to the police, Rader asked that if he wanted to send communications via a computer disk, could that disk be traced back to him? Police responded with a simple ad in the Wichita Eagle, "Rex, it will be okay." Believing what the police had told him, Rader soon mailed them a computer disk. The disk's metadata revealed that its files had been created on a computer at Christ Lutheran Church by someone named Dennis. A quick internet search for Christ Lutheran Church listed the president of the congregation to be a man named Dennis Rader. After matching semen recovered from the BTK crime scenes to samples from Rader's daughter Carrie, Rader was arrested without incident on his way home to have lunch with his wife. Dennis Rader eventually confessed to 10 murders and detailed his crimes in open court. As part of a plea deal, he received 10 consecutive life sentences. Paula Rader was quickly granted an emergency divorce and maintains that she was completely unaware of her husband's secret life as BTK. Dennis Rader is currently 79 years old and is incarcerated in the El Dorado Correctional Facility in El Dorado, Kansas. For his protection, Rader is kept in solitary confinement.